So hi everyone, thanks for watching this video. My name is Lluís Socias-Martínez and I would like to present a collaborative work that I've done with Louise Peckre. And our work tries to understand if there's any effect from the social lives of animals on the evolutionary speed of a species. If you're interested in this, please check out our preprint at Zenodo. The theoretical motivations for this study are twofold. On the one hand, we see that people try to explain why there's an emergence of a certain type of social system or another. But while the causes are relatively understood, the consequences of having different social systems are relatively unexplored. And one of these consequences that could be pretty important for understanding biodiversity patterns concerns evolutionary speed. And when we have started delving into this literature, we have seen that social lives of animals are considered, but mostly from a sexual selection perspective. So we wonder, what about all the other rich areas of social variation? So what about social selection more broadly? We did a literature search on Google Scholar and tried to gather as many studies as possible. We end up with 89 studies. And surprisingly to us, they fall into two main categories that link social systems with evolutionary speed. On the one side, we have what we call the selectionist perspective that sees social systems as kind of environments that select for certain social characters. And because what's selecting is the species itself, is kind of a coevolutionary loop that drives social characters in a potentially never-ending trajectory. And if you have different parts of a population that follow a different trajectory, you may end up with different species. And this selectionist perspective predicts first that there's an effect from sociality on evolutionary speed, but also that the stronger the social selection pressure, the faster these processes of change and speciation. And then we have a different perspective that comes from population genetics that sees variation in sociality mostly regarding at the number of individuals that reproduce in a species and the imbalances between the sexes in reproduction. And this, they say it's important because these are variables that affect the rate of neutral evolution. And so the stronger the imbalances and the fewer the individuals that reproduce, the faster the neutral evolution. And so if you have characters in different parts of the population that start diverging, that start going in different neutral trajectories, you may end up also with different species. So let me guide you through a figure that summarizes the results of this literature research. So we have this triangle. Each edge is a different evolutionary force. You have sexual selection, non-sexual social selection, and neutral evolution on top. And you could read the triangle in this following manner. If the figures that are lying on the edge of the triangle, they represent supportive evidence. And the number is the number of studies that fall into this category. And then when you go towards the center of the triangle, you have studies that show either intermediate support or no support at all for these effects. And so what you can see is that most of the studies fall in the edge. So there's evidence for social lives of animals influencing or affecting change in characters. And then the problem we see is that you do not find this effect in the speciation part. So most of the studies fall into the center of the triangle when they try to seek evidence for a speciation effect of sociality. So to discuss this, we have delved in detail in the paper seven potential areas for improvement. But here, to be concise, what we see is that first, people tend to study in a taxa-specific manner these effects, and so they use social categories that are very good for their taxa, but they are not very good when you try to do comparative research. And also, a second problem is that these categories amalgamate different axes of social variation, for example, group size or reproductive skew. They put all this variation together. And then related situation is that we have a lack of predictions of, perhaps deriving from this, for each of the specific axes of variation. We don't have predictions of what a change in group size would do, or a change in reproductive skew, or a change in parental care, for example. And then most of these studies rely on communicative systems, either to assess the effects or the consequences of social selection, but they tend to focus on specific signal or specific modality, for example, auditory or visual, but animals communicate usually in several modalities with many signals. And so when you do a test on one signal or on one modality, you are basically missing all the other aspects of variation that could affect. And so with this, I would like to thank you for your attention and all the people that helped us build this project.